What do you do when the company you built from scratch starts feeling like a stranger to you? Noah Emerson stared out the car window, watching the valet team rush around the circular driveway of one of his hotels, location 14 out of 19. This one was in downtown Dallas, a high-end business hotel that catered to conference-goers, CEOs, and out-of-town guests with deep pockets. It was supposed to be one of the best-performing locations. But in the past 3 months, customer reviews had dipped. Not the rooms, not the food, the valet service. Complaints about long wait times, scratched vehicles, cold attitudes. He'd read them all, but what stuck out most were the vague references to management not caring and staff scared to speak up. Noah had never met the staff here personally, none of them. This hotel had opened during the pandemic, and hiring had been done by the district manager and on-site management. It was a corporate-run process. He'd never even walked through the front door. Until now. He'd shaved his beard, dyed his hair a few shades darker, added a pair of thick glasses, and dressed in a cheap polyester uniform that matched the valet crew's. His name tag said Eric, a nod to his middle name. No one would recognize him. The only people who had met him face-to-face were the district manager and a few executives up north. "I'll be your new trainee," he said to the valet supervisor as he stepped into the crowded valet booth at 6:45 a.m. The man looked up from his clipboard. Mid-30s, lean, with a tight jaw and a perpetual stress line between his eyebrows. "You're late. I was here at 6:30. Just wasn't sure where to go." He grunted. "Next time, don't wait around."
"I'm Muslim."
"You're paired with Danny today. Stay out of the way, don't crash anything, and don't talk unless it's to a guest."
"Got it."
Noah nodded. "Got it." Danny was a kid. Couldn't have been more than 21. Nervous energy in his steps, a wide smile he used to cover the bags under his eyes. "You ever drive a Tesla before?" he asked as they jogged toward a Model S. "Couple times," Noah said. "You'll get used to it. We park on P3. Follow me." By noon, Noah had sprinted back and forth across the driveway more than 20 times. The heat was brutal, and Mason hadn't let them take a break longer than 3 minutes. Danny kept apologizing every time they had to run. "We're down 2 guys, he explained. "One got fired last week. The other's car broke down yesterday. Mason wouldn't give him another day." Noah raised an eyebrow. "No replacements." Danny shook his head. "Mason don't like asking for help. Says we'll figure it out." So, we do. Mid-afternoon, a black Mercedes pulled up. The driver, a woman in her 60s, handed the key fob to Danny. "Be careful with it, please," she said. Danny nodded. "Always, ma'am." They parked it. No issues. But 30 minutes later, when Danny brought it back around, Noah saw it. A 2-foot scratch along the passenger side.
Deep.
Danny's face drained of color. "Was that there before?" Noah asked. I don't know. I don't think so." "Oh God." The woman came out, saw the scratch, and her face twisted in horror. "What the hell is this? This wasn't here." Danny immediately stepped forward, voice shaking. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I must have done it. I'll report it right now." Mason stormed over. "What's going on?" Before Noah could speak, Danny blurted, "It was me. I scratched it. I'll pay for it." "Damn right you will," Mason snapped. "You're on thin ice already." The woman demanded a manager. Mason waved her off. "We'll cover it, ma'am. Go inside. They'll take care of your stay." As soon as she disappeared into the lobby, Mason turned to Danny. "You just bought yourself a $2,000 mistake. Payroll deduction starts next week." Danny's lip trembled. "Please don't report it. If I get written up again, I'll lose this job. I'm helping my mom with rent, she's sick. I can't." Mason didn't care. "Then you should have been more careful." Noah stood frozen. He'd seen a lot of things go wrong in his years running hotels, but this was different. Danny hadn't caused that scratch. The car had been parked in a tight spot, surrounded by concrete pillars. Noah had seen it with his own eyes. The scratch was too high up. It hadn't happened on their end. Danny was covering for it. Because he was scared. Noah's chest tightened. He looked over at Mason, who had already walked off, muttering into his radio. Then back at Danny, who was staring at the ground, fists clenched. Noah had built this company to give people a chance. People like Danny. And now he was watching a kid about to lose everything over something he didn't even do. He couldn't let it slide. But he couldn't blow his cover, not yet. Not until he saw just how deep this went. Noah took a deep breath and stepped toward Danny. "You sure you did that?" he asked quietly. Danny didn't answer. Just nodded once, eyes still on the ground. Noah knew he was lying, and that told him everything he needed to know. The next morning, Noah arrived before sunrise. The air was cooler than yesterday, but not by much. The valet booth was unlocked, lights already on, but no one inside. He stepped in, checked the dispatch clipboard hanging by the door. It was blank. No assignments. No schedule. He pulled out a pen and started jotting down names and shifts from memory, just to make sense of who worked when. Mason hadn't explained it, hadn't posted anything. Danny arrived a few minutes later, rubbing sleep from his eyes, sipping something from a gas station cup. "You always get here this early?" Noah asked without looking up. Danny leaned against the wall. "If Mason beats you in, you lose your first pick of the rotation. That means more runs to the farthest levels, which means more chances to mess up. So yeah, I get here early." Noah finished scribbling. "You eat anything?" Danny shook his head once. A black SUV rolled in, and the rhythm began again. By mid-morning, Noah had a clearer view of the operation. There was no system, no rotation. Cars got parked wherever there was space. Employees had to memorize where they left them. One mistake, a wrong level, a missed ticket, and the whole line backed up. And Mason? He didn't help. He barked orders from the booth, occasionally stepping out to hover and criticize, but never parked a single car. Around 10, a third valet arrived. Marcus. Tall, mid-40s, with a limp in his right leg. He moved slower than the others, but his routes were precise. He didn't talk much, just nodded and got to work. Mason noticed. "You're late again," he snapped from the doorway. Marcus didn't even flinch. Wasn't late. Clocked in at 10. Clocking in isn't the same as being ready. This isn't a charity. If you can't move faster, maybe it's time we find someone who can. Marcus took a long breath, then walked away without a word. Noah leaned over to Danny. He always talked to Marcus like that. Danny stared at the ground. Marcus used to be full-time. Hurt his knee a while back. Now Mason only schedules him twice a week. Says he's slow and brings down the line. He doesn't seem slow. He's not. He's just careful. That's not what Mason wants. A few minutes later, Mason called Noah over.
"You. New guy.
Walk with me." They crossed the driveway and stepped into the back corridor of the hotel, past the service elevators and toward a metal door marked storage. Mason pulled it open and flicked on the light. "See that?" He gestured to a stack of dented cones, busted radios, and a clipboard with loose pages. "That's what happens when idiots don't pay attention. You drop a cone, crack a mirror, scratch a fender, you pay for it. You understand." Noah nodded once. Mason stepped closer. "We're not like the front desk. We don't get tips for smiling. We get tips for speed. You wait too long, customer complains. You mess up the ticket, customer complains. You breathe wrong, corporate breathes down my neck. So, I don't care about your excuses. I care about results." He paused. Danny's soft. "Been thinking about cutting him loose. Think he's worth keeping?" Noah looked him straight in the eye. "He's got potential. Just needs structure." Mason scoffed. "Structure? This isn't a damn school. It's a grind. You either keep up or get lost." Noah said nothing. Mason walked out. Back outside, A guest in a sharp navy suit was arguing with Marcus. Noah jogged over to catch the tail end. I said I called 10 minutes ago. Where's my car? Marcus pointed toward the garage. I went for it, sir. But it wasn't where the ticket said. You lose my car? No, sir. It was moved. I'm getting it now. The man huffed. This is why I don't stay downtown. Always the same slow service. Can't follow instructions. Noah scanned the booth. Mason was watching from behind the glass, arms crossed, doing nothing. Marcus jogged off, favoring his injured leg, disappearing into the garage. Noah stepped up to the man. Apologies, sir. We had a mislabeling earlier. I'll make sure you're not delayed again. The guest didn't even look at him, just pulled out his phone and started typing. Marcus returned 2 minutes later, breathing hard, holding the keys aloft. The man snatched them, tossed him a folded bill without a word, and drove off. Noah looked at Marcus. You okay? Marcus nodded, wiping his forehead. He's nothing. Been coming here for years. Always got something to say. Noah lowered his voice. Has Mason ever helped you out when this kind of thing happens? Marcus gave a dry laugh. Mason? He helps himself. Only time he steps in is when he's covering his own mistakes. Just then, a white Lexus rolled up. Mason exited the booth and greeted the driver with a grin that didn't match anything Noah had seen from him before. Mr. Lanning, Mason said, voice suddenly warm. Always a pleasure. The man inside wore a blazer and sunglasses, even though it was overcast. You keeping things running smooth, Mason? Of course, sir. Took care of that issue you flagged last month. Got rid of the dead weight. The man gave a small nod.
Good.
I'll be upstairs for an hour. Don't let me down. Mason waved him off, then turned back toward Noah and the others, face snapping back to cold indifference. Get that parked. And don't scratch it. As Noah jogged off with the keys, something clicked. Got rid of the dead weight. That's what Mason had said. No specifics. Just vague enough to mean anything. He parked the Lexus and walked back up the ramp, passing by Marcus, who was leaning against a pillar, catching his breath. You ever meet that guy before?
Noah asked.
Marcus didn't look up. That's Lanning, corporate consultant. He shows up every few months, pretends to care, then disappears. You know what issue he flagged? Marcus finally looked at him.
Yeah, me.
He said it flat, without emotion. Said I was a liability risk. Mason told me after. Said he was trying to protect my job, but needed to cut my hours. Said that was the compromise. Noah clenched his jaw. That's not a compromise. Marcus gave a tired shrug. Beats being fired. Noah walked back to the booth, heart pounding. He reviewed everything he'd seen. A broken system.
No versa.
A manager who played favorites, ignored abuse, and punished loyalty. And worst of all, people like Marcus and Danny being chewed up by the very culture Noah had sworn this company would never become. Inside the booth, Mason was scrolling through his phone, feet up on the desk. I want a new guy on double shifts this weekend, Mason said without looking up. Let's see if he can handle real pressure. Noah nodded once, then stepped outside. He needed one more day.
Just one.
He'd seen enough to know the rot was real, but he needed to see how far it spread. How many others were being stepped on. How many more had been pushed out quietly under the radar.
Tomorrow, he'd push the line.
And he'd see who showed their true colors. The next morning, Noah arrived just after 5. The garage levels were quiet, and the only sounds were the hum of fluorescent lights and the low buzz of HVAC units echoing through concrete. He didn't head to the valet booth. Instead, he waited across the street beneath the awning of a closed cafe, hands in his jacket pockets, watching the hotel's side entrance where employees usually slipped in unnoticed. At 5:30, Mason walked up alone. He unlocked the booth, stepped inside, and flipped the lights on. Noah waited another 10 minutes, then crossed. Inside, Mason didn't look up. Clock in. Cars'll start coming by 6. Noah pulled the timesheet from the drawer. Still no printed schedule. Still no sign anyone from upper management had been involved in staffing. Danny arrived next, followed by a fourth valet Noah hadn't met. Thin frame, sharp cheekbones, eyes half-lidded from lack of sleep. She introduced herself as Vanessa. No one else came. By 6:30, they had 2 valet runners and a booth manager for a luxury hotel that averaged 40 to 50 check-ins before noon. Noah did the math in his head. It wasn't just tight. It was unsustainable. The first rush hit harder than usual. A line of 6 vehicles stacked on the driveway curb, horns tapping in agitation. Vanessa vanished into the garage with the first run, and Danny was already on his second. Noah sprinted to the next car, a silver BMW. The driver, a man in his 40s, stepped out without a word and tossed the keys to Noah's chest, then walked off toward the lobby. Noah caught them and glanced back at the booth. Mason wasn't even watching. He was talking on his cell, leaning in the doorway with a coffee in hand. By 8, Vanessa was limping. Not badly, but enough for Noah to notice. She'd taken the stairs twice when the elevator was slow, and her left ankle wasn't landing right. Between runs, Noah pulled her aside near the stairwell. "You all right?" "I'm fine," she said, catching her breath. "Twisted it last week. Mason told me if I called out again, he'd cut me from the schedule." He paused. "You didn't tell him it was still swollen?" Her tone flattened.
He saw it.
"Said I should invest in better shoes." Noah looked at her sneakers, tread nearly gone, the fabric torn near the toes. At most, they cost $30. The next hour blurred. Guests complained about delays. One man cursed at Danny for taking too long, and another accused Vanessa of taking a tip from his console. Mason didn't step in once. He stood near the booth, scrolling his phone, occasionally barking instructions into his radio that only added to the confusion. Just after 10, a black pickup truck pulled in. The driver, a woman wearing a maintenance badge and paint-splattered jeans, leaned over the wheel. "I've got a delivery for room 219. Can I leave it here for 5? Mason walked over, arms folded. "This is guest parking only." "I get that, but I've got 50 pounds of supplies in the back and no dolly." You've got 2 minutes. After that, I'm calling towing." She frowned. "You serious? Do I look like I'm kidding?" Noah stepped forward before she could respond. "I'll help her unload. We'll be gone in 60 seconds. Mason didn't say anything, just turned and walked off. They moved quickly 2 buckets of paint, a short ladder, and a plastic-wrapped toolkit. As she jogged toward the service elevator, she glanced back. "Thanks. First guy today who didn't talk to me like I'm invisible." Noah returned to the booth. Mason didn't acknowledge him. By noon, the lot was nearly full, and temperatures had climbed. Vanessa was leaning against the back wall, massaging her ankle. Danny stood by the service elevator, his shirt clinging with sweat, eyes glazed. Noah approached Mason, who was now sitting inside the booth with a fan pointed at himself. "We need water," Noah said. Mason waved toward the back hallway. "Machine by the staff restroom." "It's empty. Vanessa's limping, and Danny hasn't had a break since 6. Then he should have said something. "I just did." Mason stood up. "You think this is a democracy? You're a temp. I don't answer to you." Noah took a slow step forward, voice calm.
"No.
You answer to the company. And I'm telling you this is a mess." Mason's tone shifted, lower, more biting. "You don't like the heat?
Quit."
Plenty of guys waiting to take your spot." Noah stared at him. "That's how you run this." Mason didn't blink. "That's how you survive it." Noah took a step back, then turned toward the lobby. He walked straight past the front desk, down the service corridor, and into the manager's office behind the operations wing. It was empty. He sat down at the desk and pulled out his phone. He called Janet, the company's regional HR director. Janet, I need you to come to Dallas.
She paused.
What's going on? I'm at the downtown property. In person. Undercover.
Get here today.
Bring a compliance officer. Her voice tightened. I'll be on the next flight. By 2:30, the sun was blazing. Noah returned to the valet booth. Vanessa had taken off her shoe and wrapped her ankle with a strip of cloth torn from an old towel. Danny was moving slower, his eyes bloodshot. Noah handed them each a bottle of electrolyte water he'd bought from a gas station across the street. He didn't say anything, just passed them over. At 3:15, an elderly couple pulled up in a champagne-colored Cadillac. The woman struggled to get out, and Danny rushed to help her, walking her to the curb. When he returned to park the car, Mason intercepted him. You trying to impress somebody? Danny blinked. She needed help. She's not tipping. Waste of time. Danny didn't answer. He took the keys and jogged off. Noah stepped behind Mason. You ever say that again, you'll regret it. Mason turned. Excuse me? You just implied we only help people if they tip. That's not how this works. You don't make the rules. I built the rules. Mason's face shifted. What are you talking about? Noah reached into his pocket and pulled off his name tag.
I'm Noah Emerson.
Founder, CEO. And I've been watching you for 3 days. Mason froze. Danny had just returned and stood behind them, puzzled. Vanessa stepped up beside him, her limp forgotten for a moment. You think this place runs on fear and shortcuts. Noah said. You bully your staff, ignore guest complaints, and cut corners on safety. You've been exploiting people who needed this job more than you deserve yours. Mason opened his mouth, but Noah didn't give him the chance. You're done. Mason's voice cracked. You can't just fire me without protocol. You want protocol? HR lands in 40 minutes. You'll get protocol. Mason backed away, jaw clenched, but said nothing. Noah turned to Vanessa. Go sit down. You're off your feet the rest of the day. We'll get you checked out.
He looked at Danny.
You're getting a raise. Starting today. And you're covering the booth until we install a new supervisor. Danny blinked. I don't know how to, you'll learn. You've already proven you lead by example. He turned to the others. Changes start now. No more silence. No more fear. We're rebuilding this from the ground up. He walked toward the lobby doors, heart pounding, not from the heat, but from the weight of what he'd just seen and what he was about to fix. By the time the HR team arrived, the valet booth had gone quiet. The afternoon lull had begun, and the driveway was mostly clear. Noah stood just outside the service entrance, watching the unmarked rental car pull into the delivery lane. Janet stepped out, followed by a man in a navy suit carrying a legal folder. She didn't greet Noah with small talk. There wasn't time for it. How bad is it? She asked. Noah motioned for them to follow. You'll see. Inside the back office, Noah walked them through a brief timeline of what he'd witnessed: understaffing, harassment, physical neglect, retaliation against employees who spoke up. Janet flipped through her notes as he spoke, her jaw tightening with each page. The compliance officer said nothing, but his pen didn't stop moving. Noah didn't dramatize anything. He didn't need to. The facts were damning on their own. Janet closed the folder. Where is he now? Still in the booth. I told him to stay put until you arrived. Janet nodded once. Let's go. They crossed the lobby without ceremony, slipping past guests who had no idea that a career was about to end 15 feet from where they sipped coffee. Mason saw them coming through the glass. He stood up, straightened his shirt, and opened the booth door with an exaggerated calm. Afternoon, he said. Didn't expect quite this much attention. Janet didn't respond. She handed him a single printed page. You're being terminated effective immediately for cause. Your access to all hotel systems and property is revoked. A member of corporate security will escort you off-site. Mason's expression faltered. You're not even going to hear my side? Noah stepped forward. I already did. For 3 days. Every word you said, every choice you made, was your side. Mason glanced at the compliance officer, then back at Janet. This is ridiculous. You're taking one guy's word over mine? We're not, Janet said. We're taking your entire record, guest complaints, staff turnover, and now an executive's direct observation. That's more than enough. Mason's voice rose. You think valets are lining up to work this job? You think anyone wants to deal with this heat, this pressure, these guests? Noah's eyes didn't move. Then you should have led better. You were never expected to fix the weather. You were expected to set a tone. Mason scoffed but said nothing else. Security arrived moments later. He was escorted out without further incident. Back inside the office, Janet exhaled. We'll need to audit the entire operation. This didn't happen in a vacuum. It didn't, Noah said. This started with how we scaled. Too fast, too hands-off. That changes now. Over the next several hours, the shift pivoted. Janet pulled Vanessa aside first, privately, in the break room behind the service corridor. When she emerged, her eyes were glassy, but she walked taller. Then it was Danny's turn. He didn't speak much, but when he sat down again, his lips were pressed together in a way that suggested something had finally been lifted off his chest. Noah didn't hover. He returned to the valet booth and stood beside Marcus, who had stepped in to help after Mason's removal. Marcus had stayed quiet through most of the morning, but now he leaned slightly on the booth counter, arms crossed. You think it'll actually stay different? He asked. It will, Noah said. Because I'll be watching this one myself. Marcus didn't respond right away. Then he said, You should have done that a while ago. You're right. A silence passed between them that wasn't tense, just honest. Later that afternoon, Noah gathered the entire valet team, what was left of it, near the back entrance, where a sliver of shade gave them a break from the heat. Janet stood beside him. So did a new face. Carlos, a long-time assistant manager from another property who had volunteered to step in temporarily. Noah addressed them directly. No more guessing when your shifts are. Starting this week, we're moving to digital scheduling. You'll have access to it on your phones. No more being told to cover double shifts without notice. He gestured toward Carlos. This is Carlos. He's here to help stabilize things until we bring in a new supervisor. He's not here to take over. He's here to listen. Carlos nodded once. I've been where you are. I've run in this same heat. You're not just drivers. You're the first impression anyone gets of this hotel. You deserve leadership that acts like it. Vanessa raised her hand slightly. What about injuries? If we call out, do we still lose hours? Noah responded immediately.
No.
If you're hurt, you're off the clock until you're cleared. And we'll help with medical if it happened here. That's policy from now on. Danny looked up. Will we be hiring more people?
We already started, Noah said.
We'll bring in 3 more valets by end of next week. Until then, we're scaling back guest valet availability during the slow hours. You're not going to be asked to do the work of 6 people anymore. No one applauded, but they stood a little straighter. After the meeting, Vanessa approached Noah quietly. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why'd you do it? You could have stayed in your office and sent someone else. I thought I knew what was happening down here, he said. Turns out I didn't. And I couldn't fix it from a spreadsheet. She nodded once and walked off to join the others. Before leaving, Noah asked Carlos to walk the garage levels with him. They took the elevator to every floor, identifying trip hazards, poor signage, and outdated lighting. On P3, where the Model S had been parked, Noah paused. The scratch was still faintly visible on the concrete pillar, just enough confirmation that Danny had never been responsible. Carlos noticed. That the spot? Yeah. You want the cameras pulled? Noah shook his head. No need. I already know what I saw. I trust him. Back in a lobby, guests moved about unaware of the overhaul happening just beyond the marble floors and polished elevator doors. That was always the strange thing about hospitality. The most important changes happened behind the curtain. As Noah prepared to leave, he stopped by the booth one last time. Danny was logging keys into the new tracking system Carlos had set up. The software was simple, efficient, a clean slate. Danny looked up. "You heading out?" "For today." Danny hesitated. "You think I'll be good at this?" "Leading the booth, I mean."
You already are, Noah said.
"You just didn't have the title." Danny gave a small nod, then turned back to his screen. Outside, the sun had finally started to dip. Shadows stretched across the driveway, and the worst of the heat had passed. Noah stood at the curb for a moment, watching a valet from the evening shift help an elderly man out of a cab, gently holding his elbow as he stepped onto the sidewalk. It was a small gesture, but it told him everything he needed to know. The tone had shifted, and this time it was going to hold.